This is a 2014 second generation MG3.
What's that, Matt? Don't you mean first generation?
No, second generation. Aha, but the first generation was China only. We didn't get the MG3 in the UK until the second generation. The first generation MG3 actually came out as a China only car based on the Rover Streetwise, or a rebadged Rover Streetwise, in 2008. So it's 5 years later, in 2013, when the second generation completely re-engineered on the British shores. It was built as a knockdown kit from China and assembled in Longbridge, so sort of British. And here it is today. Let's take a look around. As a car built primarily in China in the Nanjing province by the SAIC company, or SAIC if you prefer, Chinese customers are unfortunately confused by a variety of engines, a 1.3, a 1.5, 91, 107 horsepower. It's very confusing. Fortunately, here in Britain, we avoided that confusion by the kindness of MG, who only gave us the 107 horsepower, 1.5 litre four-cylinder engine, which in the UK was only available as a manual. Back in China, it is also an automatic. Now, the styling of this car is actually quite brave. You may think it's a bit anodyne in that it's just very curvy and swoopy, but actually if you look at the style, there are lots of intersecting curves going all over the place. Nice honeycomb grille, the big MG badge here in the middle, this nice sort of lower splitter as well. Lots of details, and this stayed the same until late 2015, early 2016, when it was facelifted very mildly. And by facelift, I mean very, very mild facelift. And by very mild facelift, I mean a chrome strip along here below the grille. And under the bonnet though, it was a little more significant because to comply with Euro 6 regulations, it gained start-stop technology to get better emissions. Is there anything else to it at all?
That's it.
That's it. That was it. Now, the main appeal of this car is to a younger driver. Not just because of the interesting, fun styling, but also because the insurance group 4 will attract anyone who's struggling to get insurance on a car. And to that end, they really push the boat out, making it customizable, make it interesting. So there's 10 color options and numerous decal options you can put on this car as well. The owner of this car has protected the diamond cut alloys with alligator rims, rim protectors to stop the scuffing, and done it in red, which actually works really well, setting off the black paint finish of the car. These headlights are quite interesting really. Obviously it's a clear one-piece unit with integrated side light and indicator, and it's only a conventional bulb, not sort of fancy LED or anything, but I do really like the little MG logo right in the middle of that. Isn't that really cool? And daylight running lights are LED strips down below, which interestingly only go half of the way of the length of the aperture. I don't quite know why. Anyway, in about 2018, the entire car was completely and fundamentally facelifted with more than one piece of chrome and looks completely different. So from that point on, it's the same car underneath, but looks like a different car. But that'll be in a different video. Now, bear in mind, this was an entry-level priced car. So there are not many things on the market cheaper than this. A Dacia Sandero maybe, but then you're getting wind-up flat glass windows in that. So I'm going to be very generous to this car because you're getting a lot of kit for not a lot of money. And it does feel, okay, it's not the most tactile materials, but this is a nice leather steering wheel. I'm contradicting myself every time I speak. It's good and it's bad at the same time. On the good side, you have got electric windows all the way around. You've got central locking, you've got cruise control on style and upwards, which this is. You've got air conditioning, you've got a DAB radio, you've got a USB input, you've got aux input. You have cup holders, or they don't quite fit cups in them, which I'll show you in a second in a cutaway. You have rather comfortable seats, automatic lights and wipers, and rear parking sensors. That spec list is going to put a Dacia Sandero of equivalent value at the outset to well above the price of this car. So, in retrospect, this car is built down to a price, but fabulously well spec'd. Let's get to the less good aspects of that nice spec. Okay, not everything in this car feels premium. You don't expect it to feel premium because it's only a £10,000 car. For example, my new favourite thing in the world, the little twangy thing of that fuel. Did you even hear that? It actually bounced back off the bodywork and in again. It might even be locked again right now, I don't know. The cup holders, here I have a standard paper throwaway cup, a fairly small non-disposable cup, which we should all be using really, shouldn't we, because we are responsible and care about the environment. Go and buy yourself a Furious driving one if you so wish, or even a Rover branded one. Check out my Redbubble store. The cup holders are remarkably small. They remind me of the Seat Leons, which have got equally foolishly small cup holders. I don't know why any manufacturer would do that. Surely these people have seen cups at some point in their lives. Now, the radio, DAB as standard, that is fantastic. Every car should have that these days. However, every time you start the car, the radio comes on for you at a relatively loud volume. It's going to embarrass you at some point. You have a second cubby hole down here, which is quite useful for small items, although once you put a cup in here, which is at an angle like that, you can't actually reach it anymore. Curiously, your door lock buttons have been grouped with the heater switches. I'm not quite sure why. Although interestingly horseshoe shaped, I'm not quite sure why they're so tiny. There's a whole dead area of plastic next to them, and half the screen doesn't seem to do anything. The buttons could be at least twice the size and big enough to put your finger onto. The dials are interesting. They light up in quite a curious and entertaining manner. I'm sure I could entertain myself for several minutes in a traffic jam going from blue to red. It looks like a 1980s robot's face curving from, like, it's this little scanner thing going up and down. That's quite fun in a way, but you don't really know where you're going, and these rings do feel a little bit loose as you twist them. Likewise, the plastics in the centre of it, it's a nice leather steering wheel, but the plastics in the centre feel a little bit cheap. You've got nice big door bins down here. Well, I say nice big, they've got a fairly small opening with a nice big door bin. Oh no, I'm completely wrong. They're just okay sized door bins, big enough for a few CDs, but nothing else. I do rather like the roller shuttered area on top, which is ideal for putting small things that would otherwise flow around. The seating position is rather variable. You've got backrest adjustment, obviously. You have height adjustment, which is good on a car for this price point, is excellent. And of course, forwards and backwards, but I think that's probably a given these days. The boot is also relatively well sized. It's kind of on par with the Fiesta. It's about 285 litres, so... Well, this is what 285 litres of boot space looks like. It doesn't come with a full-size spare wheel, but this particular car does come with the Avengers music CD and the music of Laurie Johnson. I'm not sure this is standard or not. It's worth checking with your dealer. It does, as standard, come with a hazard warning triangle and an emergency inflation kit. I, however, have never had a puncture which could be repaired with an emergency inflation kit, and apparently a Rover 25 spare wheel will fit in here. The space beneath where I'm sitting right now is enormous. It's almost half a boot again, so worth investigating if you have one of these cars. Now, I wasn't going to mention the rear seats on this car, but Joseph, who brought this car along for me from Tweed Jacket Reviews, whose link is in the below, said I really did need to sit in the back of this car because it was amazing. And I'll be honest, I am amazed. This is frankly quite commodious. The headroom is incredible. I've got a full waggly hand width above my head, and that's the standard measurement, isn't it? The waggly hand. Knee room is impressive. I've sat in full-on saloon cars with less space in the back here. There is a single cup holder in the back, so you're going to have to fight over that, probably to the death, to decide who gets the cup holder. But beyond that, you do get another door bin each as well, which is nice. Isofix impressive. I am pleased. Well done, MG. I'm going to assume this is because the Chinese market value rear room and headroom very strongly, so they've built a car that's going to sell well in the home market. And well, for our benefit really. Well, I think I've rambled on enough. Let's go and take it for a drive and see what the rest of it's like on the road. So, setting off for my first ever drive in an MG3. Well, this is actually rather pleasant. The 1.5 litre engine revs quite happily up to sort of 3,500 to 4,000 RPM. It's not massively powerful, being only 100 horsepower, but for a car of this weight, it's plenty enough, and it doesn't feel at all strained. I mean, this is my first 100 yards, let's be honest, and our first fast roundabout. But we're not going to pull out in front of a Jaguar. Now this car, although developed under SAIC, most of the development actually took place in the UK by British handling type boffins. So it is set up for, you know, British driving sensibilities and British driving roads. So it actually feels really good. It's only a short drive into it, but I'm already rather impressed. The suspension is relatively firm, but it does have sporting pretensions, so that will be the reason for that. And in a moment, hopefully the road will open out and we can get to test out more properly. Something Joseph pointed out to me was that they didn't change the mirrors from left to right hand drive format, so the blind spots when you're parking this thing and in certain driving circumstances are awful, which is why we've got little blind spot mirrors on both sides. I had wondered about those when I first saw the car, and now I know. As you accelerate, you pretty rapidly notice you run out of gears when you hit number 5. which isn't uncommon in cars of this market segment, but you'd think being a car sort of post 2010 really ought to have 6 speeds in it for the motorway. That said, the gear change is nice and light, it's very precise. The clutch pedal is also light, so the whole activity of gear changing is in no way arduous. And the car does just buzz away quite happily from a roundabout. This is a very long way indeed from the flat caps and oily drives of an MGB owner. This is definitely your first car or second car young driver machine, which is a great thing for MG because it brings people into the brand, which is what they need and what they deserve considering what the current output is like as well. I was pulling over to move my outside cameras, and it's a really weird spot for an emergency hazard light button. Down here between the gear stick and the handbrake, exactly where you would not be looking for it if you encountered some kind of emergency.
Oh no, not again.
Radio 3 again, oh honestly.
The temperature gauge of this car is really strange. So when you turn the engine on, it flashes red and then blue, and then it just continues blue and it goes off.
Oh right.
It's the only way you know how hot the engine is.
So the engine, the 1.5 litre, is fairly smooth. It's not massively rapid, but it's very smooth. I'll definitely give it that. And the steering has a very fluid feel from the hydraulic assistance. Combining the rather nimble chassis with that hydraulic steering and a 5-speed gearbox, it does very much put you in mind of a kind of late 90s, early noughties hot hatch, but with modern sensibilities. You can barrel it through a corner with a fair degree of enthusiasm, and it's quite a rewarding thing to do. We've now found a little back road, and it's hugely fun. If there's one thing British car engineers do very well, it's chassis engineering, which is why people like Lotus get hired all across the world and in demand to do chassis engineering on so many different vehicles. And this is really no exception. It is a rather nice little gearbox. I'll say it's only a 5-speed, but it does the job beautifully. Now that high roofline in the back of the car obviously extends to the front. It's not a 2-step roof, that'd be crazy. But it does give you an amazing feel of spaciousness inside here. I've got loads of room for my elbows and the seating position is excellent, but I'm not even aware that there's a roof over my head at the moment. I could be in a convertible or a small cathedral right now and have less room. I might go and buy a hat. Something you will probably not be aware of unless you're very into MG3s is that this has got a different gear knob to the original press car that the journalists in the UK were given to drive. No one knows why this was changed. It's one of those mysteries of life which we'll probably never know the answer to, but there you go. Our fuel economy in this car is acceptable. It's low 40s, probably 42 mpg general use. But compared to things like Fiesta, which gets 50 or 60 even, it's not that impressive. But you are buying a car for far less money in the first place. Now let's see what this thing's like on a dual carriageway, where we can actually give it some beans. Okay, that's 40. More beans might be required. That's 50. And that's 60. Trotting on to 70 because we're on a dual carriageway and we can. Up to 5th, lovely. That is a nice gearbox, even if it has got the wrong gear knob compared to the press car. MG has taken a while to establish a foothold back in the UK market. After their initial sort of proud attempt to get back in with using knockdown kits sent over from China and assembling at Longbridge, they stepped back from that in about 2016 and went to purely importing the cars with just PDIing over in the UK, or here in the UK I should say, as that's where we are. But the initial launch of the 6 kind of was more of a whimper than a bang, and the 3 took a little while to establish, you know, a foothold in the market. But as you look around, you will see more and more of these things. They're starting to get things more and more right. The 7-year warranty on the later cars is particularly impressive, and the styling is, yeah, it's growing on people. When you look at this car, it is unmistakably an MG3. It's quite an attractive machine. That kind of swoopy, pointy nose, it does remind me a little bit of the Alfa 145, that kind of beaky look. I can't do a two-handed beaky look, I'm on a corner. Hang on, I'm hitting traffic lights. That beaky look at the front, it's unique, it's different, and I like a unique, different car. It's something that stands out from the crowd. It's not a Golf. Some people say, is it as good as a Golf? I prefer to say, is it different to a Golf? And this is definitely different to a Golf. For one thing, it's a different size car. I'm talking nonsense, aren't I? I might cut this bit, I'm just rambling now. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little roundup of the MG3. It's a curious little car which is growing in popularity in the UK, and I think will continue to grow even more so very soon indeed, or in the near future, I should say. If you've liked this, hit like. If you haven't hit subscribe on the channel, please hit the button down there. Hit the bell notification as well, and then you can be warned that stuff from me is about to appear on YouTube, and you can run away and turn it off in a hurry. If you didn't like it, then honestly, keep it to yourself. I don't care. I'm doing this for me, not for you. It didn't cost you a penny. Don't hit dislike. I'll come around your house. I won't come around your house, obviously. That's stupid. But hey, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.